About to start. I've got Megan and Joanne here. Megan, help me out. Give me some good advice on risk management.
I think some good advice is you need to create a model. Find something that works for your organization and stick to it.
Well, that's some good advice. Now, Joanne, I'm going to ask you the opposite. Give me some bad advice on risk management.
Don't worry about the risk. David, just risk accept everything.
That is pretty bad advice. Megan, good luck on this. Give me some worse advice.
Okay. How about we're compliant, so we must be secure and there's no risk to worry about. We're going with compliance. Stick with compliance, right?
Why not?
Let's
begin the show.
It's Super Cyber Friday.
Hey, everybody, it's Super Cyber Friday, and today's topic is hacking the future of risk management. We've actually done hacking risk management multiple times in the past. In fact, with this very company before, Reciprocity, which is now Risk Optics. They were Reciprocity, but now Risk Optics. Anyways, an hour of critical discussion on how we need to evolve our measurement and reduction of risk. Our guest today, you just met them, it's Joanne Smith. She's the CISO over at Longview Systems, and also Megan Monaville, who is the Director of Technical Product Management over at Risk Optics. And guess what? They're our sponsor today, Risk Optics. Remember I told you they were formerly Reciprocity. Just moments ago they were. Lots of different ways to participate. Okay, our bad idea, this is for you who like to play in this game, is how not to calculate risk. I am going to hear, I'm sure, a lot of really bad ways to calculate risk. I want to hear your awful suggestions because the worst ones that get voted up will be the game that we play of the Department of Yes later. Anyways, but we do also want to know your tips, your good advice on how to improve risk management. You can vote in the polls. You can ask to say, bring me on at any time, and we'll try to bring you on to ask a question or make a comment. And ask a question at the very bottom of the screen. You see, you can click the button to ask a question. Please go ahead and do that. And also vote on your favorite question. If a lot come in, I want to know which one you all want to hear. All right, so today's schedule, it's pretty similar to our last few weeks. How not to calculate risk and tips on improving risk management. We'll play the public interest. We'll put up a couple of polls. We'll play the Department of Yes. We'll have some last questions, final advice, and then we'll do our meetup portion. So those of you who have never joined us before, after this whole thing, there's a lot of fun in the chat room, but after all of this, we do a meetup where we go to this other platform called Toucan and we simulate a virtual party and we get to meet each other face to face, and it's a lot of fun. So please stick around for that. Our next scheduled show will be June 9th. I strongly recommend you come to that because we will not have another one because of my travel until July 21st. So we're going to be over a month of no shows. So the link to register for that is at the very bottom of the screen. You can click on it at any time during the show, and it will not take you out of this chat. You'll still be in this chat, but you get to register. Remember, if you register early, you are automatically entered in a raffle to win a CISO Series jacket. And huge congrats to David Toth of Forward Networks for winning this week's raffle. He got an awesome CISO Series fleece. All right, enough of that introduction. Thank you for being patient as I got through it. Let's just talk about it. I have some questions. Let's just talk about where we were 2 years ago with risk management and where we are today. I will start with you, Megan.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I think risk management was still one of those things that we weren't quite sure how to do. I'd like to say that we made a lot of progress. I think there's still some folks who are still not quite sure what to do.
It's still confusing. I'm sorry. It's still confusing.
It is, right? And I think that's part of some of the struggle we've had. You know, you and I talked about sort of looking for that model or looking for that structure. And we've had a lot of changes that we've tried to make as an industry. But I think the difference really of where we're at today is we understand the importance and we're starting to see some guidance out there. But what we're struggling with is how to reduce it, right? There's a lot of confusion, kind of what Joanne was saying, right? We'll just accept this risk. It's fine. But what are we really accepting? Or are there other options? How do we reduce it? And I think that's the challenge right now, is trying to understand what we can do to reduce the risk. We know it's important. Now it's the action side of it. So.
All right, Joanne, I want your viewpoint. Think back 2 years ago, how you're managing risk. What are you doing differently today?
So a couple years ago, risk was a department that did its own thing. Security operations was a department. You had your CISO and other CIO or C-suite executives. managing technology, governance, and IT.
Hmm.
They didn't join together. So no one talked to each other. And then you'd go to a board meeting and the board members were the ones that were typically trying to like knit it all together. I think that's moved down into the corporate level and the operational level now. Technologists are a lot more conscious of risk management and what that entails. And, the next step and the big evolution really in the last year is tying compliance in there as well and using governance to supplement both the IT side of the world and your risk metrics side of the world.
Very good. All right. I just want to point out that we did get the Magic 8 Ball bad idea. We get that often. Thank you, Brian Called and Matt Black. Similar, the darts and chalkboard. But must say that I also enjoyed John Procap's suggestion of, I'm enjoying the visual of this, of hire old bookies to handicap risk, replacing GRC platform with a dusty chalkboard. I'm sort of envisioning a scene out of the movie The Sting there. I like that. So
I don't know. I like Michael's idea of the 20-sided die because I can see easily having like different risk treatment options on each side of the die that comes up. And it's like, we're going to do this one. Sure, we'll go with it.
By the way, these are all classics here on Bad Idea.
Yes.
8 Ball, Dungeons and Dragons dice. So these are all the hits. We're spinning some of the hits. I'll ask ChatGPT. I like that, Buckaroo B. Thank you. That's good. All right. We got actually questions coming in. And one, this is a long one, but from Ty Powell. This is kind of another classic, but it gives sort of a long description. So as a vendor customer success rep, my job is to maximize risk reduction capabilities using our tool, both by making sure it's configured properly, used maximally, and by highlighting gaps that we don't cover. So some of our partnerships are certainly more effective than others. This is going to be the third-party risk question here. How much of the responsibility to cover vulnerabilities do you think lies with the vendor and how much with the user? How do you think we best build an effective partnership? So this is just classic third-party risk management here. I guess maybe, and it goes into the classic question. It's like, it's a lot of it depends, but I guess where do we start here, Megan?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think there's a lot of debate on the best path forward for third-party risk.
Mm-hmm.
And really my stance on it and really the Risk Optics stance on it is tell us what it does to your business. So when we're talking about that third party, that vendor, that provider, right? What do they do for you? What kind of data do they have access to, or is their tool integrated with, different systems, things like that? That's really what you have to start with. And so at that point, now you can say, all right, do they have,
and don't treat all vendors equal because
right. Exactly. That's where you get to start to say, oh, they've got, this level of access. They're a lot more impactful to our business as opposed to somebody who maybe doesn't have as much access. And it allows you to start to prioritize kind of what you do want to look at. And I think what's really cool too is depending on the third party you're looking at, when we talk about due diligence activities and there's a section of, the SOC 2 report that tells you what those complementary controls are. And so really focus in on that. I think that's an underutilized piece of data that you get from your third parties where you're able to see what are those controls that you are still responsible for. And then also really using that impact to your business to prioritize, should they be fixed? Are there compensating controls? Things like that.
So Joanne, I want you to think for a moment of a vendor, and there may not be an answer for this, but I'm hoping there is. A vendor you worked with that wasn't looking so great, but the business really needed to work with them, and you ended with a good experience. Can you think of a vendor like that, and what got you to a better place with them?
100%. We work with different vendors within any organization every day, like hundreds of them typically. And the impact that each individual vendor has differs. So typically the largest pocket of vendors that would present the greatest risk for me will be the median, the middle group of your vendors. Not super impactful, not super light, like you're only buying licenses or something from them. Mm-hmm. It's that middle group, because that middle group will be on a tipping point where they're trying to maintain their business, but also trying to service, you as a customer or other customers. Those are the ones where their controls might fall off. For example, You may have vetted them and they're like, say, a managed services vendor. They have a SOC 2 type 2 report. It was successful when you first onboarded them, but a year later they had some defects and they were not able to recertify. If we, as the customer side of those vendors, don't keep up with a kind of a recurring process to validate that they still are servicing us in the way we need to be serviced because they're critical to our business, but they're also mitigating the risks that they bring into our house, then, that's 100% on us. That's a me problem, not a them problem. I find collaboratively working with the vendors to help support so that we can stay aligned and have positive, successful working relationships is 100% the way to go.
Justin Murhoff here has an interesting question that I don't even know how bad a problem this is, but you tell me. How do you calculate security risk due to tools and processes not being digitally accessible? Is that a problem? Like, I would assume everybody is digitally accessible. So you're not nodding your head. Yes, that's a problem, Megan?
I mean, I've seen it in a couple ways. A lot of times we think about the third-party SaaS applications where it's cloud hosted and you're going to connect out to somebody else's, machines, for lack of a better word. But I think when you have other services or even internal on-prem things like that, the same, risk applies, maybe just on a smaller scale. And so I actually had a conversation with a customer about this recently. A lot of their systems are on-prem, but they still want to be able to monitor and associate some of the risks associated with those. And so really being able to have that sort of inventory, if you will, of your services, for lack of a better word. It may not be technology all the time. It may not be something that is a SaaS product, but there's definitely still risk associated with that. And so having, like that centralized register, and like Joanne was saying, where do they fall on that scale of impact and what we call too the likelihood, right? Like Joanne was saying, some of these organizations are a lot less likely to have incidents because they've got their security locked down and you can feel more comfortable with them. Others, you might have to, go back and have some more detailed conversations.
I want to go back to this 2 years ago and where we are today. Joanne, what is it you feel more comfortable about risk now that you did not feel comfortable about 2 years ago?
Today, we're actually using risk management and risk management processes in order to supplement the rest of our business approach. 2 years ago, less so, because it was all kind of siloed, as I said before.
Okay.
So today we look at risk of varying types. I have 3 buckets for risk, like very high level, 25,000 foot buckets. You have business risk. Those would be things related to, your financials, like, US currency to Canadian currency exchange. If the rates fluctuate, that can affect your bottom line on your books. Right. Business risk. You have, enterprise-wide risk, where if somebody does something wrong, it affects you across your whole organization. Then you have like technology risk. So that's kind of what you're talking about. That's this bucket where you're talking about, something breaking and what impact does it have on a greater or smaller scale to what you're doing operationally on a day-to-day basis. The difference today is we've now organizationally, through the use of tools that like, Zen GRC or ROAR, that Risk Optics. I'm a customer, by the way, super happy customer. We use those tools in order to tie all of those buckets together to an overall risk appetite as a business. So if you have a risk appetite and a low risk tolerance, that means 80% of the things that you do roughly have to fall under a low risk category. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at any situation from any of those buckets, and it doesn't meet a low risk tolerance, then it's an indicator to apply additional controls, either new controls, replace the old ones with new, or take what you have and apply some compensating controls to kind of further reduce your risk to low. And, you can get a heat map, you have an understanding of how you're operating from a risk perspective and a technology perspective as a business against what your actual risk tolerance is. I have something measurable and reportable to share with board members, or organizations can share them with shareholders, whatever their situation is, and how they communicate how they're doing from a governance perspective.
So I want to call out Eric Strassman's bad idea here. Score risk based on the number of
Yes.
vendors that called that day claiming to eliminate their risk. There is a certain level of truth to that, because
There
kind
is.
of that's on a questionnaire, and someone say, well, we eliminate that. We don't do that. And if someone is just being trustful, they're like, all right, check it off.
Mhm.
Like, you could kind of go that way, right? Megan?
Well, it's funny too. Yeah, and it's funny. I was having a conversation yesterday internally about what your thought process is when you buy a new tool, when you buy a SaaS product or whatever that may be. And part of it is, can they solve your problem, right? And we were joking. It's like every vendor is going to call you up and say, yes, we can solve your problem. We can eliminate that risk. We
They
can
all
do
do,
something like
yes.
that. You know what I mean? So when I saw Eric's comment pop up, I almost like laughed out loud, right while you were talking there, Joanne, because it's true. It's a lot of times it's, and I'm laughing because my friend Val is on here and he made a comment about questionnaires earlier. And it's true. We have to find that balance between the questionnaire, like we need to gather information, versus you can trust us, here's some, smoke and mirrors show, right? So it's trying to find that balance in between there. So,
All right, we got a game to play.
all right.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
All right, our audience knows how to play this question. Everyone, audience, play along. You will see some letters to choose from. Again, this is extraordinarily difficult, as simple as it looks. There's going to be two options for, I think, all four of these. Only 4 questions. I want to know from our audience if anyone gets 4 for 4. Well, I did a pre-round before with Megan and Joanne, and neither one of them did well in the pre-round. So
We did not.
It was abysmal.
it was a bit, so the hope is that they're going to do a lot better this round as well. Again,
Fingers crossed.
I know we've had one, possibly 2 guests who have actually done it 4 for 4. It's not easy, but let's give it a whirl. First question is, most average monthly search queries, is it assess risk or measure risk? What do you think gets more?
Ooh, this one's tough.
This is a tough one.
I'll let you go first this time, Megan.
That, by the way, that's not going to help either way, Joanne.
I was stalling to see if anybody was going to answer in chat. I think
You're getting some answers.
I am. Oh, and they're split. Honestly, I would say measure risk, because I feel like measure risk is sort of one of those like almost buzzwordy type thing. You know what I mean? Like measure, monitor.
It is buzzwordy.
Yeah.
It's I would agree. It's more buzzwordy than assess risk. But again, you're talking buzzwordy in the world of cybersecurity. Yeah. This goes out to everybody who uses Google. Joanne?
I'll say assess risk, because on any given day, I get at least 20 requests. Can we do a risk assessment on this? And I'm not
risk
even sure
assessment is
they
a
know what they're
different search.
asking for.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. The point goes to Joanne. All right.
There you go. You got it, Joanne.
All right, so Megan, you're out of the running for 4 for 4. Okay, here we go. Most risky, least risky.
I feel like it would be least risky, because most people are looking to reduce risk. So identify the least risky options.
Good answer.
I gotta say D as well.
Okay. All right, let's see here. Correct answer. You are correct. 2 for 1 on that
Whew.
one. Least risky. All right.
All right.
Joanne is kicking butt. 2 for 2.
But Megan's on the board. She's chasing.
Megan is on the
Yeah,
board.
exactly. I'm coming
All
in
right.
strong.
This is a good one. Risk management versus asset management.
Oh. I feel like, Joanne, you go first.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, because she's on the first 2, Joanne. This is on you.
I'm going to say risk management, because it's a super hot topic right now.
An asset
Also-
management isn't?
Well, but like also, does the average person like searching up asset management? Like if you're not in security, risk, IT world.
Well, it has to do with securities, plural.
True.
Yeah, asset management. All right, we're going to see how this flies. It is risk management, correct?
Oh,
answer.
yeah.
Oh, you're 3 for 3,
All right,
Joanne. You
3
got
for
this.
3.
Oh,
This is
game
it,
changer.
Joanne.
Mhm,
Can you
mhm.
pull it off? Another 4 for 4 winner. We'll see. Security or resilience.
This is a tough one.
I almost feel
Uh,
like security is like the obvious choice, but like, I don't know. Is resilience more?
I'm
What's your
gonna
call?
say I'm gonna say resilience because security's been in the forefront as a buzzword for so long.
Yeah.
I think many people that are Googling are looking for how do they get past that and make sure that they can stay operational and up and running.
All
So
right,
I'll say
Joanne.
H.
Solid logic.
All right, you going H or G? What are you? Security or resilience, Megan?
I'm sticking with security. I'm sticking with
So
security.
you're going security. Joanne is
Just
going
because,
resilience.
yeah.
Somebody's going to win. And it was security. Joanne, you were
Oh.
so close.
Oh, so close.
You should have looked at the
That's a
chat room. Most people are answering G. Very close. All right. I do want to get to the topic. Well, first of all, audience, if you have not clicked the button at the bottom of the screen that says hacking data loss, please go ahead and do that right now. Again, it will not take you out of here, and you'll be automatically registered for our raffle, which will be next week. All right, get those. Oh, is the bad idea poll going up? I think we should throw the bad idea poll. Winner in the live version told you. Winner in the. Oh, okay. So, Darcy.
Thanks, Darcy.
Yep.
All right. So yes, Joanne did very bad. Joanne did better here than she did when we were in the green room earlier. Everybody. All right, 10% better tips are coming in. Thank you very much, Brian Colt. And yes, the poll is up for the best bad ideas. Please, please, please vote for the bad ideas. Give Joanne and Megan a challenge when we play Department of Yes. Remember, you want to vote for the thing you think they're not going to be able to deal with. All right. I want to get to the topic of risk optics. We are talking about risk management. Joanne is a happy customer. For our audience that doesn't understand what you're doing, explain. And by the way, the change to reciprocity to risk optics, did that have to do with the change in what you're offering as well?
It did quite a bit. So actually, I just want to take a moment. So Kerwin in the chat used to actually work for Risk Optics. He was one of our product managers early on in the days of Roar. So nice to see you again, Kerwin. But really, reciprocity, we'll start with reciprocity as a company. We started many, many years ago, actually, as a spin-off project for Google. So Google needed something to manage their multiple frameworks. And we came in and we said, yes, we will do that. And so our original product, ZenGRC, was one of those. We started out on the market with a lot of the cross mapping across frameworks. So you got a lot of people, oh, we got this compliance, right? It was very compliance focused. And as time went on, a lot of other competitors, a lot of other softwares really focused on that compliance side. But what we've seen in the market is that really it's not about so much the compliance side of it. I kind of joked earlier as well. It's really about the risk and the risk to your business. And so we started to look at, what is really going to enable our customers and enable just in general people to move forward with risk. And we realized that we have to sort of break this mold of compliance first, framework first, and focus on your business and the view into your business or the optic into your business, right?
Oh, there
so
you go.
That's really what we came down to, of looking at our name and understanding a lot of times we didn't actually have that much brand recognition. A lot of people knew ZenGRC. They didn't quite know reciprocity. And so in looking at the new product and all that kind of stuff, we really wanted to rebrand and relaunch as Risk Optics. And that's really what the new platform does, is it focuses on these optics, these views into your business, whether it's a product line, a business unit, a different region or market, stuff like that, and then puts all of the building blocks of that area, that business focus together, your threats, your vulnerabilities, your controls. We stitch all that stuff together within that optic so that you can get a really great view of your risk and actually have targeted and actionable activities to reduce your risk through some of the other, areas within the module compliance.
All right, I'm going to throw this to you, Joanne. You said you're a very happy customer. I want you to think about the day you were not a happy customer. You were not a customer at all. And what is the difference between that day and today?
So prior to being a happy customer, so this, I think at my current
Oh,
organization.
by the way, did you start as an unhappy customer with them and then become a happy customer?
No,
I-
she was
no.
totally fine.
I started as an unhappy director of information security and then became a happy customer.
Okay,
Because the negative cup is half empty was we were doing everything on spreadsheets.
Ooh.
Risk management as a program didn't exist. Compliance was all on spreadsheets. Trying to manage controls was all on another spreadsheet. And then you were trying to manually create pivot tables between workbooks. It was literally a gong show. So, moving into a governance, risk, and compliance tool with reciprocity way back in the day was a real game changer. And although Megan mentioned that, compliance isn't, the root of risk management, compliance programs are the gateway drug to your business case for getting a Zen GRC type tool or any GRC tool, because it is usually a big enough problem within an organization that will allow you to get, a program like the ROAR today as into your organization. Managed security services company, we do managed security services. We spend a ton of money on resources and tools to solve security problems. If you can't, kind of take it to your customers, it's really difficult to get, business case funding for a tool. Compliance was my gateway drug into getting, long-term funding for a GRC tool. And we're just 1 year into using it at Longview. And it's been such a successful program for us because now we have visibility across our risk profile, our compliance programs, our risk management and risk entries. So we really had no idea how much risk we had on the books. And we were instantly able to catalog it all and start to mitigate, low-hanging fruit and dwindle the numbers. I saw a comment earlier. I can't remember who said it. He said, having 500 risk entries isn't helpful to your organization. 100% true. But if you don't actually catalog and link it to everything, it's hard to compartmentalize and keep track and actually prioritize what you should fix first, second, third, et cetera.
So bubble me up a little bit to the business, because I'm going to get also into some enterprise risk management questions because I saw it come in. Second, how has this behavior now changed business operations? And what have you seen, Joanne?
So the business is now so first of all, you have a tool like Zen GRC or ROAR. You can give the business visibility into what those risks are and how it connects to everything else. They actually understand the same thing that the leaders are understanding and seeing. So it's allowing them to preemptively plan for risk management as part of their day-to-day operations and projects.
And
we didn't really have that before.
Have you found, as a security leader who needs to talk to the business, is this facilitating, because I'm kind of giving you a very leading question here, but is this facilitating your ability to communicate with the business?
It's actually bringing me to the table at a operational and a project level. Whereas before, I was sitting in my, beautiful office in my tower. Now I'm actually at the table in the weeds working with project teams, and my whole team is actually involved on different levels. It's created organic collaboration between teams that really didn't exist before, from the C-suite down.
So if I'm getting this correctly, bringing Zen GRC is like bringing a bouquet of flowers, so they will pay attention to you. Yes.
Or a gateway drug.
Choose whichever metaphor you'd like here.
I like it. I think it's so true. And one of the things that I saw in my prior life, so before working for Risk Optics, I was, the risk and compliance manager. And it was one of those things, like you said, right? It was like, they're just going to sit over there. And, as long as we get our certifications. But the example I like to use is we were opening up a facility in Costa Rica. And the reason we were opening that facility was because we were expanding our sales. We needed more coverage. We wanted slower queue times, right? But the whole approach was like, literally, they were going to put all of the IT equipment in a shipping container and put it on a boat and send it to Costa Rica. And it was one of those things where I'm like, yeah, sure, you could do that, but you're completely jeopardizing or putting at risk your whole project of wanting to reduce wait times and do that stuff. What if the equipment gets damaged, kind of things like that. And that was that aha moment for me of I need to be communicating this around my business in a way the business is understanding. So instead of saying, we need redundant shipments, or we need, one to go by air, one by sea, and they're going to look at me and say, that's a waste of money. But if I could instead go to them and say, if we split these, we could get half the center up and running, start moving, and then do this, kind of having those conversations, but put it in the perspective of the business. And that's really like what Joanne was saying is now, they're not going to understand the need for like faster patching, right? Or longer password lengths. But if you go to them and say, if we implement these things, we can reduce the risk of X, and then you can get, achieve this goal or move forward in this area.
It allows you to have that better conversation. It's giving you the ammunition. Look at all the negative things, giving you the ammunition, the gateway drug.
Exactly.
Are there any other illegal activities we can refer to risk optics here?
Exactly. I did used to joke. So when I was in my audit role, I would have to go to like my IT guys and say, hey, I need blah, 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 whatever. And I used to joke I would bring donuts. So I'd bring a dozen donuts and my evidence request list with me, bribe them with them. So yeah, the Roar platform is the box of donuts that you're going to bribe your IT team with. So
I like this. All right. So let me get into, by the way, the bad ideas are coming. We're going to be playing in 9 minutes. We're going to be playing the Department of Yes, but please also get in your votes for the best bad ideas. And this is a question from Phil Beyer, who is the former CISO over at Etsy. And he asked this question. Regarding enterprise risk management, ERM, what are the best ways for us, InfoSec folks, to learn more about ERM practices? How can we better collaborate with the ERM function/governing body in our org? So I think we just answered a lot of that question. I would love some more examples because this is a great question. You gave some good examples. Got any more for us? I'll start with you, Megan.
Yeah, I think, a lot of times it's really about, like I was just saying, about your business and what are you trying to achieve. And so from an InfoSec side, from an IT side, your risks may be a little bit more technical in that sense, but really bubble that up. And so at Risk Optics and with the Roar platform, when we talk about risks, there's a really the clear definition that a risk is a hypothetical event that could cause harm. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an IT risk or a financial risk or an enterprise. You can categorize whatever you want. It's a thing that is good. It's a hypothetical event that could cause that damage. So it could be business interruption, could be financial loss, what have you. But really looking at it from and applying a holistic manner. So if I'm looking at this risk, whether it's an IT one, an enterprise risk, whatever, what are we do? The first question is, what is it impacting? How bad could it be, right? What part of my business is this risk associated with? Because if we're looking at prioritization, there's a risk associated with, a high revenue generating activity or product versus an area that's a little bit less critical. You're like, yeah, we can accept that risk over there versus on this other side. So first and foremost, if you're making that connection between the IT side and the enterprise and strategic and whatever, it's really, regardless of what the risk is, it has to be, what's the impact to the business? What does it touch? Because if you can't add a dollar value, for lack of a better word, then the risk is useless. It's like betting $1 versus $1 million. If the dollar value doesn't matter, right? Then there's no risk associated with it. Whereas the risk to $1,000 versus $1, that's a big difference. And I think that's really, if you're going to look to make that bridge and make that model, it has to start with the context to your business.
Actually, and let me ask specifically context to your business. I'm going to ask you this question, Joanne. Have you, by using Risk Optics, have you started to see things like, oh, that's how it's connected? Like you didn't even realize it completely. Like, did you start to see things yourself? And then you're like, oh, the business needs to see this kind of a thing.
100%. We didn't have visibility at times on the cyber side. We were very focused on our own projects and programs. Risk management visibility into what's going on in your business as a whole and what's critical actually really makes a difference. So if I look at just cyber as a conduit or siloed tower. We're all about what we need in our own department. We're not really clear on impact of what we're doing to others. So, if my boss, the CEO, says, lock this down, enable DLP, stop all our data from leaking out. And then I find out after I shut everything off with my controls that the business was relying on being able to communicate a set amount of data to some customer or a business partner or whoever over the internet, and I just turn that tap off, that could lead to all kinds of other new risk. It could lead to breach of contract risk. It could lead to financial risk because now we're unable to deliver a service. Your risk management program and the use of ZenGRC at, your IT and security roadmap level and for your business projects level makes a huge difference because it gives the average technology worker visibility into things that they don't actually know about and don't need to know about every day, but it gives them that route and path into better decision making on their projects because they have that visibility.
I want to call out Daniel O'Neill's 10% better tip, who said, move away from red, yellow, green so you can understand what is 10% better actually means. So you're nodding your head. I'm thinking that what you're offering with Risk Optics goes down that line, because this has been the major complaint. Let me just sort of set this whole thing up here. There are a lot of products that offer a red, yellow, green viewpoint into your security program. Now, if you're one of these people that just, quote, accepts whatever vendor thinks of your business as to what is red, yellow, green, and also he goes, well, you can set it for whatever you want. I'm like, well, I don't want to micromanage this damn product, but it looks good, but reality is no. So my question to you, Megan, is how are we seeing these 10% better things in your platform? Like, how do things sort of alert us to, you might want to tweak this?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too that I think I made a joke in a prior presentation of, we're trying to communicate quantitative information with qualitative metrics, and it's just not gonna get across. And so that's really where you have to come back to that dollar value or the value to your business. It's kind of like we use this bald tire analogy, where if you think about, an old tire, it's got no treads, it's completely bald. What's the risk of that? Well, you don't have enough information to tell me what the risk of that is. Is it on a car? Is it on a tire swing? Is it hanging over a cliff full of like spikes and, things like that? So it's really hard to just look at a risk and say, oh yeah, this is high risk, or this is low risk, or this is what have you. It needs to be contextualized. And then it's really coming back to, like we said, what is the impact to your business of something like this happening? And then the next layer is what Joanne was just talking about, is then, okay, what are the things we can do to reduce the risk? And I was chuckling, Joanne, when you were telling your story, because when I started off, I started as an information security manager. And the first thing I did when I got there is they actually had an external audit that was done previously. And it was like a laundry list of things to fix, right? So I was like, okay, so I'm going to go in there. And one of the first things it was, oh my gosh, developers have access to production. Shut it down, right? And if any of my friends are watching, they know exactly what I'm talking about. The developers lost their minds. They're like, what do you mean we can't have access to production? And I was like, the rule says this, kind of a thing. But that's just a really good example of, you need to have those kinds of conversations, because if the impact of those developers having production access is really no big deal, or even beneficial, like Joanne was saying, maybe we need to have that risk in order to accelerate further. And so it's really contextualizing it, adding a value to it, because when it has a value, now I can say, okay, that bald tire on my car where I have to drive across country, yeah, that's a way bigger issue than that bald tire hanging on a tire swing in my backyard. So I think that's really how you shift from, more of that qualitative to actually something meaningful, is you have to put that value to it. So, hey, yeah, someone put the link there to the bald tire scenario. Thank you. Yes, I did not make that up. I surely did not. Thank you, Phil.
All right, we got a call just came in.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right, we're playing the Department of Yes now. We have some horrible, horrible questions, of which a few of them brought up. And I'm going to bring up one of them that I mentioned earlier in the show, and that was the John Procap one, which I liked a lot, which I sort of visualized the movie The Sting. And his was hire old bookies to handicap risks, replace GRC platform with a dusty chalkboard. So, okay, we're talking specifically Risk Optics is going to become a dusty chalkboard. Think about how you would do that, why you want to do that. Megan, I'm throwing this to you. Why do you want to do this?
It would make a lot easier to change things because you could erase the chalkboard pretty easily.
You can't delete on your computer easily?
I mean, you might be able to, but a lot of times UIs, there's admin restrictions. So you'd have to like go around the whole thing with the chalkboard. You can just willy-nilly.
Hold it. You're missing one thing here. One person. You can just put one person in charge of the chalkboard.
Ooh, that is true. Well, in that case, they get to make all the decisions. So by all means, go have it, right?
There you go. All right. But by the way, I'm giving you that for the first part of your answer. There you go. All right, Joanne, why do you want to do this? Why do you want it the old dusty chalkboard? This is all your risk is changing to this. This is how your whole risk platform's changing.
So first of all, I've heavily invested in chalkboards. So I don't have one dusty chalkboard. I have many dusty chalkboards.
Good.
Each person has their own chalkboard on my risk management.
Yes.
Yay!
Wow, there you go.
And the chalkboards are all in one giant room. You can see how big my space is. So we can all see each other's chalkboard, and it allows us to see what else is going on from chalkboard to chalkboard.
Right. It doesn't have to be on video screens.
You're way better at this game than I am, Joanne.
All right. We're going to go to the next one. All right. This one is now I'm going to give a call out to Michael Swinarski with the 20-sided die. That is a popular one, but we're going to go with Buckaroo B's one of Ask ChatGPT. I'll start with you, Joanne. Joanne, why do you want to ask ChatGPT to manage your risk? And what would you ask it? In fact, tell us what that prompt would be.
So if I was going to ask ChatGPT about my risk, I would ask her, because I believe she's a lady.
Okay.
I would ask her what I can do to consolidate my mitigation efforts for my risk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot cleaner and smaller to keep my risk register size down.
All right, we'll give that to you. By the way, I'm going to toss you, Aaron. Would you put up the poll for the 10% better tips, and you can drop the bad idea poll right now. All right, last one. This is for you. What are you going to ask ChatGPT? Thank you, Buckaroo B, for doing that. I'm assuming that's Buckaroo Banzai, by the way.
I would hope so.
Yes.
I mean, I could simply ask ChatGPT what all of the rest of the companies have put in ChatGPT and see what they have there.
That is very good. Yes.
That's my subtle burn on data security with ChatGPT.
We've got a winner.
You redeemed yourself on that one.
Thank you.
Good job.
Very well done.
There you go. That's assuming everybody is publicly putting their risk register into ChatGPT. Let's hope.
I mean, I've seen worse things, so I've seen stranger things.
All right. Well, very good job. Did we get the 10% better poll? Yes, the 10% better poll. A whopping 4 are around here, and the votes are coming in here in just a moment. But let's get to their questions. I'll go to that in just a second. Okay. This comes from Shri. There is a growing discussion around, quote, digital trust. This seeks to combine privacy, data integrity, security, and risk management. Have you seen this concept gain traction, or are these still pretty siloed? And I think what we're doing is there is a risk management. I mean, all these things play into risk management, but privacy is a different sort of egg that sort of folds into this. How are you sort of embracing digital trust? I'll start with you, Joanne.
So,
because it's part of your company brand, I would assume as well. Yes.
We don't use that term ourselves.
Okay.
But for me, what digital trust really means is a holistic approach to implementing, cybersecurity or controls across an organization that not only protects your organization, but also protects the consumers of whatever services or products you're selling to them. So, how it ties to risk management, cybersecurity, digital trust for me is a buzzword. We've always been, organizationally trying to combine all of these things together. We didn't do it very well. I think we're getting better at it. But, every time we make a few steps forward in tying our programs together for better risk management, security management, management of data, whether it's in our organization or outside in the public world. So there's your privacy tie. We have 2 steps back because our attack surface has increased significantly. And the attack surface is changing dramatically in what attackers are trying to take out of our businesses. So you look at all the noise about ChatGPT and other new technologies, those actually step us backwards because it creates panic in the moment of we should lock it out and we should make sure, if there's other CISOs on the call here today listening in, who doesn't have ChatGPT somewhere on their risk register right now as something that needs to be analyzed and assessed as to how it's going to impact our business from a risk perspective, from a data compliance perspective and data management. We're all looking at the same things and trying to figure out how do we get our heads around the technology. Most organizations haven't really mobilized effectively on the migration from on-premise infrastructure to cloud. They're 2 very different technology models, and we have incorrectly assumed that our skilled workers that could manage all of our technology that was on premise can just leap and do the same thing on the cloud. It's a totally different approach. So, mistakes have been made. We're identifying them as fast as we can holistically across, the technology universe. And some are faster at it than others because they have more people and they have more money to throw at it. Smaller organizations that don't. We, as an organization that provides managed security services, supports a large number of medium and small businesses, and they struggle a lot more than some of the big organizations just because they don't have the people and the skills in-house. So we try to help supplement that.
I want to get to some of these 10% better tips. We mentioned the really good one that came from Daniel O'Neill about moving away from red, yellow, green. But this one, I'm interested to know your take on it. This comes from Jeff Reich, who, and by the way, I greatly appreciate, out of the box thinking. So if you're against this or for this, I want to know your thoughts. But Jeff, thrilled that you throw this in here into the box, into the options. Lower your dependence on frameworks and require that each department head puts all bonuses and budget on risk assessments and outcomes. Megan, what's your take on that?
So I think I read
I know
it.
that's not part of your job, but
No.
I want to know what you think.
I think I read it wrong the first time. So no, I'm just rethinking after you rephrased that. No, I do like that. I do kind of like the fact that, you're putting the onus on the department heads. And that is, something that we talk about at Risk Optics. That's the point of the optic, right?
Right.
Is to create
requiring ownership of the risk. Yes.
Exactly.
And do you actually, is that part of Risk Optics? Like I can put a name attached to it, to a risk on the platform?
Yes, essentially. The reason why I paused is really because actually something Joanne said about like with ChatGPT as well is that a lot of times we're talking about vulnerability management here and we're confusing it with risk management. And so when you talk about here about, department heads put all their bonuses and budgets on risk assessments and outcomes, I would scratch the word risk assessment and I would just say outcomes and just say, hey, if you want to reduce the risk associated with your department, you can implement these things. It's going to cost you, we need an MDM tool. We need, a new server. We need this. We need training. We need what have you. We're going to tell you what that needs to be. And you can decide if you want to invest money in reducing the risk to your business. And I think, so like, I don't know if that was meant to be kind of in jest about putting, all their money and budget into risk, but there's validity in that. It's the outcomes. It's those things that are broken that you need to fix. We call them vulnerabilities, right? Something that needs to be fixed, because ultimately that the more vulnerabilities you have, the more things like that, those are going to increase your risk overall. So if you put the onus on those business department heads to say, you've got a budget, you can decide where this money is spent. Here's the things that we can do to help reduce the risk and really put that onus in there. So yeah, I'm with you on this one.
All right. Very, very
Jeff.
cool, Jeff. Thank you very much. By the way, we have 10 minutes left. I'm letting everybody know. I am reminding everyone, we have a huge group here. I want to see many of you in our meetup portion, which will be happening in 10 minutes when this is over. That link at the bottom of the screen is going to change. While you're waiting for it to change, why not click on it now and register for next week's event, which is going to be hacking data loss. It's of the same category of what we're discussing right now, but you don't want to lose your data. That would be a risk, wouldn't it?
Yes.
That would be bad. And then that link will change to our other platform called Toucan, where we'll have our meetup as well. All right. I want to throw this other one out from Brian Colt. This is, again, 10% better tip. Relate the risk on your register to other security activities, such as using an identified risk as a basis for an incident response tabletop exercise. Do you do that? Do you relate one risk to another, Joanne?
We do. We relate many risks to many things within our ZenGRC tool. So you can have a risk entry that is also tied to your vulnerability management program, as Megan said. And vulnerabilities aren't necessarily just CVE type, vulnerabilities that get patched on a system to solve one small problem. They could be configuration vulnerabilities, like your environment standards are not sufficiently controlled and managed so that you're introducing the same risk over and over again across your whole platform. One little risk times 1,000 implementations can become a really big risk. We tie risk to projects, to our compliance program, to our vendor management program, and to our IT and security roadmaps that we produce annually. So our technology roadmaps drive what projects we are going to fund and deliver on an annual basis. And they risk entries and remedial activities to mitigate risk tie into the roadmap with a secondary funded bucket for, what I call the gotcha projects. Those are things that you didn't plan to do this year, but you discovered something was a much higher risk against your risk tolerance than you originally anticipated. And for the record, I am not a fan of the yellow light, green light, red light
yellow
thing. I don't manage my risk like that. We manage our risk based on our organizational risk tolerance and what risk level we have. And we categorize based on a number of different technology and business outcomes, as well as what the problem statements we create are out of the risks that we identify. Each risk has a problem statement. What problem does this cause us as an enterprise-wide business, and what does it affect? That change in metric from just like a colorful heat map made a significant difference to help us prioritize where we should spend our money. I honestly get asked all the time if I have a budget for security annually. I don't have a fixed budget. I have a forecast budget that I go in at the, in preparation for each fiscal year. But the budget is what the budget is. I'm never really refused funding for doing the right kind of work to make sure our business stays successful and our clients stay secure.
I want to point out that she does not like the red, yellow, green forecasting,
Not a fan.
but her microphone does.
Yeah. There you go. And David, if I might add on to that, because Joanne, you brought up a really great point too about connecting those. And I think, Brian, this is actually probably going to be way more than a 10% better, but that's really the concept of where we need to go with risk management is aligning your risk register with the other activities. And so you kind of heard me mention with Risk Optics, your risk is that higher level. It's a static list of things that all companies are going to have issues with to some level of degree, varying degrees. But what you can then do is, like I said, we have vulnerabilities. It's sort of that overarching term. Those are all the things you're going to fix. Like Joanne was saying, maybe a technical vulnerability could come out of an audit, could be self-reported. But then being also the other side of that is then being able to align your control activities to your risks. Because when we're talking about, and I don't know who it was, someone said earlier about risks being bad. Well, risks are, a lot of people think they are, but risks can also be good, right? And there's also the flip side of how you act upon risks. So vulnerabilities are like the scary thing. Those increase your risk. But properly, effective controls, highly mature controls can reduce your risk. And so if those two areas aren't connected, if your compliance activities don't directly increase or reduce your risk, that automation is really where you're going to start to see not just that 10% better, but 50%, 100% better.
Yeah.
Because now it's not these silos operating. You've got vulnerability management over here, third party over here, internal controls, what have you. Now all of those people are operating together. And as they're doing it, all of that flows into your risk calculation. So you're never actually really going in there and changing that risk score from yellow to red. What you're doing is you're monitoring controls, marking them as effective, remediating vulnerabilities, opening new things like that. And dynamically, your risk score is going to change. And that level of automation is really where we need to get to. That's that future. That's the hacking of risk management there.
And don't forget that the number of risks on your risk register isn't the key value.
Yes.
The key value is what level each of those risks are and what you're using those risk entries to do to plan your business to mitigate. We have a low risk tolerance. If all of my risks were low, even if I had 500 entries on there, what does that mean to the business versus 50 low risk entries, or maybe 5 low risk entries, but 25 high risk entries? Like, the number of entries doesn't matter. The value of the entries and how they tie to the impact of your overall company and your enterprise is what's the key.
Yeah.
All right, hold that thought right now. And I need to wrap up the show, but I'm going to ask you for some closing comments here. I want to remind everybody, the button there is going to change in just a second. That is our next week's show, Hacking Data Loss, an Hour of Critical Thinking Between Improving the Marriage Between Data Security and Cybersecurity. All right, you can click it this very second, but now it's going to change. Go ahead, Aaron, change it to the other link. If you didn't get a chance to register, you can always go to CISOseries.com, click the events, and you will find this event. By the way, please register and join us because, as I mentioned, it'll be 6 weeks before we do another show. Register early, as I mentioned. Hey, huge thanks to Megan's company, Risk Optics, formerly Reciprocity. They've been actually phenomenal sponsors of the CISO series. We love having them on. First time they're a sponsor as Risk Optics, so I should point out, but they just changed their name right around RSA time.
Yeah.
Hey, starting in 93 minutes from now, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review. Our guest is Howard Holton, the CTO of GigaOM. This is actually on our CISO Series YouTube channel, so if you just go to youtube.com/CISO Series, you will find it. Or you could just go to our events page on CISOseries.com, and you'll find it there as well. 2 places, and it's just a quick wrap-up of the week's biggest news stories in cybersecurity with some input from Howard Holton. Stick around for our meetup as Aaron just changed it. That link right there, you can click it right now, even though you're in this, and you can start to register to get in. Please join us for the meetup, especially those people who have never joined us before. I want to meet you. Please come and join us. It's a lot of fun. Just a half hour we spend schmoozing, meeting your fellow colleagues. Many people have met each other and gotten hired as a result of this. So if you're looking for a job or looking for someone, it's a great place to meet. Tell your friends to join us every available Friday. I told you that we're going to be dark for a period of time, but at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And if you want to sponsor Super Cyber Friday, email me at davidcisoseries.com. Our next available slot will be the end of July. So ping me, and we can do just that. All right, we have a minute and a half. So I'm going to ask for a quick 30-second wrap-up from both of you. I'll start with you, Joanne. Joanne, first of all, are you hiring at Longview Systems?
We are hiring. We are always hiring. www.longviewsystems.com.
Awesome. And any quick last comments, 15, 20 seconds, I'm sorry, you want to say here?
Joanne,
last comment. I'm sorry, Joanne, last comment.
Risk management's important. It ties to your whole program. It's a great way to communicate to your board members. If you're a publicly traded company, your shareholders. Internally, it's a great way for your teams to collaborate and understand the greater risk across the business. So drives our roadmaps, helps us be better and increase our security.
Awesome. All right, Megan, not much time left. Are you hiring, by the way, at Risk Optics? Yes?
Probably. Yeah, sure. Why
Probably,
not?
sure. Why
Hit me
not?
up on LinkedIn. I don't know. No, just kidding. We're a startup. We're always hiring.
All right, literally 15 seconds quickly. Any last comments? And I know you'll be in the meetup portion as well.
Yeah.
If they want to know about Risk Optics, obviously contact you. But anything else?
Yeah, no, I would just say if you're still doing sort of GRC as usual, as it was 2 years ago, it's definitely time to make a change. Take a look. There's a lot of resources out there. And yeah, connect and let's meet up.
Awesome. That brings us to our end. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Megan. Thank you to Joanne. Please join us in the meetup. Click that link at the bottom of the screen. Thank you, chat room. You're always a ton of fun. I appreciate you being half of the show. Thank you. Let's go chat. Click the button at the bottom. And thank you to Aaron and Andrew. Aaron, take us out.